Hello, Tinderbox podcast community. This is your host, Reverend Mishka Russell, and I am here with one of the participants at the Sankofa CPE conference, which is being held in Oak Brook, Illinois, between April the 21st and April the 24th. And I invited Brother Daryl Cummings to come in and answer one particular question that I want to lift up with regards to this conference that's focusing on health and wellness and mental wellness for clergy and chaplaincies, in particular, Black clergy and Black chaplains. And so Sankofa, the Sankofa bird, looks back to pick up, and what it picks up, it moves intentionally forward in order to move differently. And so using that imagery, using the title of the conference, I want to ask you, what thing did you come here to retrieve to help you in your ministry journey to move forward differently in caring for yourself?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I came with some questions about just how best to serve the communities that I'm part of. I would say that generically, and interestingly enough, when you do these kind of things, there should be some room for surprise. And one of the things that they lifted up, even in the opening session, that's been a continuing theme for me, has been, and correct me of the author, because they were talking about the connection of care, or the
thread of intentionality.
And was it Tamara?
I can't remember her last name, but her first name was Tamara. Yes, okay. I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Okay.
We'll figure out who the author is.
I want to make sure she gets her
credit.
Flowers.
Yes.
But the thing that has really kind of consolidated for me is that sense of consent.
Yes, the thread of consent.
The thread of consent.
Yes.
There we go. So I know they gave us some homework, and when they asked earlier, it didn't really catch at first until some of the people were starting to give their responses. And what caught for me were two things. One, my own experiences. Because I come to ministry work. One is as a survivor of both sexual assault and domestic violence. So what consolidated for me was how much of the harms that we do, or that we experience, can be linked to a rubric of consent, including consent to our being a person, consent to being in our body, consent to our own agency, consent to our own sense of faith, and when a person's harmed, you feel it's that feel in the body. And
intently.
When you look at, right.
Intently,
and when you look at it, you see how much of that has been we have imposed upon you. So
sometimes intentionally imposed upon you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So even as you think about not just the individual wounds, but even if you think about some systemic wounds, there are systemic wounds that say we do not consent to you being part of this society. And the harm that kind of causes. So to me, that's the one that it consolidated what I kind of came with, and is carried along up to this point. So that would be the thing I would say.
I love that, because I think we don't spend enough time around consent. We assume a lot of different things, right? We assume because we are familial, that we have some sort of relationship, no matter how long that relationship is, or what type of relationship that is, whether that's being colleagues, whether that's being familial, whether that's being friends or partners, or any of those types of things, that there's certain agency that we have over the other individual just because of that relationship, right? And to be intentional about your touch, about your invitation into spaces, your inclusivity, all of those different types of things. I love that we lifted that up with regards to mental wellness, and caring for ourselves, especially in the churches, right? Because there's always some congregation or denomination that says, hug your neighbor right next to you
Mm-hmm.
as we welcome.
Yeah.
And no one's asked for consent to do that.
Mm, mm, mm. You used the word that I really appreciated too. Was the assumption.
Yeah.
And think about how many times that assumption has been. Some of it's carelessness, and some of it is intentional, built in. We're going to teach you to be blind.
Yes, right?
So
yeah, we're going to teach you not to look at anything.
absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Because everything is done in good intention, isn't it? I mean, I'm being facetious when I say that, right? I'm being real facetious. And so that pause that should automatically be there when we meet people, when we introduce ourselves to people, to check in to see how they want to be greeted. I love that the dean here has been inviting us to do that and use that language. How do we want to be greeted today, right? Because today may be the day that I don't want to be touched, right? But other days I might want to be welcoming touch.
Yeah.
And for me to have power over that, or anyone else that I'm engaged with to have power over that, is huge, because we don't know people's back history.
Yeah.
And I want to pause for a minute and thank you for sharing your story with regards to the harm that has been done to you in previous years.
Yeah.
Thank you for trusting this space with that story.
Sure.
And adding that humanity to the context in which we're talking about mental well-being and wellness for persons who deal with a lot of different people who have a lot of different things that they're dealing with.
Facts.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are again here catching little nuggets of information from participants of the Sankofa CPE conference. And I want to again thank Daryl Cummings for honoring me with his story, with his voice, with his perspective, and adding the richness to the conversation that's out here in the community about mental wellness and well-being in all different types of contexts. So thank you guys for listening to the Tinderbox podcast, and tune in for more stories from our participants.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
All right. Appreciate you as well.